It was past midnight when it happened. The street was quiet in the way it only gets after everyone's gone to sleep. No cars, no voices, just the low hum of distant electricity. Inside his room, Ethan Voss was awake. Not fully, just that half-conscious state where your body is still, but your mind hasn't settled. That's when the light hit. At first, it stretched across the wall, thin, moving. Then it widened, flooding the room in a harsh white glare. Headlights. Ethan sat up slowly, eyes narrowing. That didn't make sense. No one drove down his street that fast. The engine came next. Loud. Strange. Getting closer. Too fast. Ethan pushed himself out of bed and moved toward the window, the light growing sharper, brighter. And then he saw it. A car, barreling straight toward the house. No hesitation. No slowing down. For a split second, his brain tried to rationalize it. They'll brake. They didn't. The car swerved at the last possible moment, tires screeching, body tilting violently as it cut across the curb and sped past the house. Gone. Just like that. Silence snapped back into place. Ethan stood there, staring at the empty street, his reflection faint in the glass. His heart was still catching up. That wasn't an accident. It couldn't have been. Because earlier that day, his phone buzzed. The sound was sharp in the quiet. He looked down. A message. Unknown sender. No name. No number saved. Just a single image. Ethan opened it. His breath stalled. It was his house. Not from the street, closer than that. Taken from just outside the front gate. The angle was low. Intentional. Watching. Beneath it, a message. You shouldn't have ignored the meeting point. Another message followed almost immediately. This one wasn't an image. It was text. His full address. Every detail correct. Ethan's grip tightened around the phone. He hadn't given that to anyone. Not recently. Not like that. A third message appeared. Next time, don't hesitate. The typing bubble lingered for a moment longer, then disappeared. No follow-up. No explanation. Just silence. Ethan looked back out the window. The street was empty again. Still. Like nothing had happened. But something had. And deep down, before he could explain it, before he could even fully process it, he already knew one thing for certain. The person who sent those messages wasn't supposed to exist. Over the next 3 years, Ethan would try to make sense of it. Not just that night, but everything that came after. Because it didn't stop there. It changed, shifted, got closer. The first time, it was someone pretending to belong. The second time, it was someone who refused to leave. And the last time, Ethan never figured out what it was, only that it had been there longer than he realized. Watching, waiting, adjusting, like it was learning him. It started during his second year, with someone who introduced himself simply as Adrian. The first time Ethan noticed him, it wasn't because of anything obvious. No sudden entrance. No disruption. Just presence. Adrian Kells was already there. Sitting near the back of the room, posture straight, eyes fixed forward like he'd been part of the class the entire time. But Ethan knew that wasn't true. He would have noticed. There was something about Adrian that didn't blend in. Not in the way loud people stand out, but in the opposite way. Too still. Too precise. Like every movement was measured before it happened. The teacher didn't introduce him. Didn't acknowledge him. The class just continued, as if nothing had changed. Ethan glanced back once more. Adrian was looking at him. Not casually. Not the way people glance around a room. Directly. Unblinking. Ethan looked away. First, he told himself it was nothing. New student. Quiet type. Maybe just awkward. That happened. But then Adrian spoke. Not to the teacher. Not to anyone else. Just to him. From across the room. Soft enough that no one else reacted. But clear. Ethan. Ethan turned. Adrian hadn't moved. Still sitting. Still watching. "You're early today," Adrian said. There was no smile. No expression at all. Ethan frowned slightly. "Do I know you?" A pause. Then, "No," Adrian said. "But you will." Ethan didn't respond. He just stared at Adrian for a second longer, then turned back around. Class continued. Normal. Or at least it tried to. But something had shifted. There's a specific kind of discomfort that doesn't come from fear, but from something not aligning. Like a detail that doesn't belong, but you can't prove why. That's what this felt like. Over the next few days, Adrian was just there. Not introduced. Not questioned. Just present. He showed up to different classes Ethan had. Always already seated. Always watching. It wasn't constant conversation. In fact, Adrian barely spoke at all. But when he did, it was always to Ethan. And it was never random. You take the long way between buildings. Ethan paused mid-step in the hallway. He hadn't seen Adrian approach. "What?" Adrian stood beside him now, close enough that Ethan hadn't noticed when the distance closed. "You avoid crowded paths," Adrian continued. "It costs you time, but you prefer it." Ethan let out a short breath. "That's not exactly a secret." Adrian tilted his head slightly. "It is if no one's paying attention." That was the first moment Ethan felt it clearly. Not just discomfort, observation. After that, the pattern became harder to ignore. Adrian knew things, small things, but specific. You hesitate before answering questions you already know. You check your phone even when it doesn't buzz. You don't like sitting with your back to open space. None of it was wrong, and that made it worse. Ethan started watching him back, trying to catch something off, something human, a mistake. But Adrian didn't make mistakes. He didn't fidget, didn't lose track of conversations, didn't react late. Everything he did felt pre-decided. And then there was the schedule. Ethan tested it, changed his routine slightly, took a different route between classes, left earlier than usual, even skipped a break period. Adrian was still there. Every time, already waiting. That's when the thought first crossed Ethan's mind. How does he know where I'll be before I get there? The question sat with him longer than he liked, long enough to become something heavier. A few days later, Adrian finally asked for something. They were alone. Late afternoon. Most students had already left. The hallway was quieter than usual. Adrian stepped into Ethan's path. Not abruptly, just enough to stop him. "There's a place," Adrian said. His tone didn't change. Flat, controlled. "Not far from here." Ethan crossed his arms slightly. "Okay." "It's called the Glass Hall." Ethan frowned. He'd heard of it. Barely. An old structure near the edge of campus. Unused. Closed off. Not dangerous exactly. Just forgotten. "No one goes there anymore," Adrian continued. "It's quiet." A pause. Predictable. Ethan shook his head lightly. "Why would I go there?" For the first time, Adrian's expression almost changed. Not emotion, but something close to interest. "Because that's where this becomes easier." "Easier," Ethan repeated. Adrian held his gaze, unblinking, to understand what's happening. Something in that sentence landed wrong. Not the words, the certainty. Ethan took a step back. "I'm good," he said. "I don't need to go anywhere." Silence. For a moment, Adrian didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't insist. Then, he nodded, slowly. "All right." And just like that, he stepped aside, let Ethan pass. No pressure, no reaction. But as Ethan walked away, he could feel it. That same thing again. Not attention, not curiosity. observation, and somehow it felt disappointed. For a while, nothing happened. No messages, no conversations. Adrian stopped approaching him entirely. First, Ethan thought that was a good thing. Whatever that situation was, it was over. He'd said no, and Adrian had accepted it. Or at least, that's what it looked like. 3 nights later, Ethan's phone buzzed. Late. Too late for anything normal. He picked it up. Unknown account. No profile picture. No name. Just a single message. You should have come. Ethan frowned. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then, who is this? The typing bubble appeared immediately, like it had been waiting. You already know. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. Adrian. Pause. Then, that's one way to describe it. Something about that response felt off. Not wrong, just not direct. Ethan didn't reply again. He locked his phone and set it down. A minute passed, then another. Buzz. He looked again. Same account. New message. You're still awake. Ethan sat up slightly. He hadn't said anything. Hadn't indicated he was online. He looked around his room. Dark. Still. How do you know that? The response came slower this time. Because you haven't stopped checking. Ethan's grip tightened. That wasn't a guess. That was observation. He stood up, walked to the window, pulled the curtain back slightly. The street was empty. No movement. No one there. Buzz. You're looking outside. Ethan froze. Didn't move. Didn't respond. A second message followed. There's no one there. His breathing slowed. Carefully. Controlled. He let the curtain fall back into place. Stepped away from the window. This wasn't normal. This wasn't coincidence. He picked up the phone again. What do you want? Typing bubble. Longer this time. Then, I want you to stop choosing incorrectly. Ethan stared at the message. That doesn't mean anything. The response came instantly. It will. The conversation ended there. No follow-up. No explanation. Just silence again. Ethan didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, Adrian was back. Same seat. Same posture. Same stillness. Like nothing had changed. Ethan approached him directly this time. Didn't wait. Didn't hesitate. You messaged me. Adrian looked up. Calm. Neutral. No, he said. Ethan frowned. I know it was you. A slight tilt of the head. You're assuming consistency, Adrian replied. What? Adrian stood slowly. Not rushed. Not defensive. You think there's only one version of this conversation, he said. Ethan didn't respond, because that sentence didn't make sense, and somehow felt like it wasn't supposed to. Adrian stepped closer, lowered his voice. You're behind, he said. Behind what? A pause. Then, Adrian leaned in slightly, just enough that no one else could hear. Yourself. Ethan pulled back. Immediate. Instinctive. No, he said, shaking his head slightly. This is weird. Whatever this is, just stop. Adrian didn't react. Didn't argue. He just watched him. For a second longer. Then sat back down. Conversation over. But the feeling didn't leave. If anything, it got worse. Because now it wasn't just observation. It wasn't just messages. It was implication. Like something had already happened, and Ethan just hadn't caught up to it yet. That night, the messages came back. But not from the same account. Different username. Different format. Same tone. You're running out of time. Ethan didn't reply. Another message. You keep avoiding the location. His jaw tightened. I'm not going anywhere with you. Pause. Longer than before. Then, you already did. Ethan's expression shifted, slowly, because that wasn't possible, and yet, something about the way it was said made it feel like it was. If something like this has ever felt off to you, not wrong, just out of place, you'll understand where this is going. Stay with me. Ethan didn't respond to that last message. He just stared at it. You already did. That sentence stayed in his head longer than it should have. Not because it made sense, but because it didn't. And yet, felt like it was referencing something real, something specific. The next day, Ethan decided to test it. Adrian, or whatever was behind those messages, knew his routine. Then he'd break it completely. No patterns, no predictability. He skipped his first class, took a route across campus he'd never used, stayed in crowded areas longer than usual. Anything to create distance, anything to disrupt whatever this was. For a while, it worked. No sign of Adrian, no messages, no presence. And for the first time in days, Ethan felt something close to relief. That didn't last, because the moment he let his guard down, he saw him, Adrian, standing across the courtyard, perfectly still, not walking toward him, not signaling, just watching. The distance between them was too far for detail, but Ethan could tell. Adrian was already looking at him, like he had been the whole time. Ethan turned immediately, walked the other way, faster this time. He didn't look back, didn't slow down, but the feeling followed. That same pressure, that same awareness, observation. That night, the messages changed again. Not just text, images. The first one came without warning, no message attached. Ethan opened it. It was a photo of the school courtyard, taken from above, wide angle, clear, and in the center, him, standing exactly where he had been earlier. Ethan's breathing slowed, not from calm, from focus, because that angle wasn't possible. There was no building tall enough, no structure that overlooked that space like that. Another message appeared. You changed your route. Ethan didn't reply. Second image. This time, a hallway, empty, except for one detail. At the far end, Ethan again, walking, mid-step, captured. His grip tightened around the phone. Third message. It doesn't matter. Then, a pause, longer than usual, like something was adjusting, recalculating. And then, the final message came through. No image, just text. You're still making the same choice. Ethan exhaled slowly. This wasn't just observation anymore. It was tracking, prediction, something new where he would be before he got there. And worse, it was documenting it. He opened the conversation again, scrolled back, every message, every timestamp. That's when he saw it. One message, sent before he had even arrived at the location it described. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. He checked the time again, then again. Same result. The message had been sent 10 minutes before it happened. Silence filled the room, because that was impossible. Not delayed sending, not scheduled. The image matched perfectly, exactly what happened, exactly where he stood. Before he got there, Ethan leaned back slightly, and for the first time, the fear changed. Before it was external, someone watching, someone following. Now, it was something else, something ahead, something that wasn't reacting to him, but moving before him. His phone buzzed again. Same account. One new message. You're close now. Ethan didn't respond, didn't move, because deep down, he already knew what was coming next, and he didn't want to see it. But the message came anyway. No delay, no hesitation. Check your door. Ethan's eyes shifted slowly toward his bedroom door. It was closed. Still. Quiet. Nothing there. He stood up. Carefully. Took a step closer. Another. Hand reaching out. Just slightly. Then. A sound. Soft. Almost nothing. From the other side. A knock. Slow. Measured. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just enough. Like whoever was there already knew he was listening. Ethan didn't move. His hand stayed just inches from the door. Frozen. Another knock. Same rhythm. Slow. Deliberate. Not impatient. Not forceful. Controlled. Like it didn't need to try. Ethan swallowed. His voice came out lower than expected. Who is it? Silence. No response. But his phone buzzed. He didn't want to look. But he did. Open it. Ethan's jaw tightened. No. He said it out loud this time. Firm. Certain. The silence on the other side of the door stretched. Then, another knock. Slightly closer together this time. Still controlled. But different. Ethan stepped back. This wasn't normal. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't someone messing with him. Because whoever or whatever was on the other side was following the same pattern as the messages. It knew. His phone buzzed again. You already did this. Ethan's breathing sharpened. No, I didn't. He typed quickly. The reply came instantly. You opened the door. Ethan shook his head. No. Another message. You saw me. His chest tightened. That didn't happen. Pause. Longer this time. Then. It will. The knocking stopped. Completely. Silence filled the hallway beyond the door. Ethan waited. Listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just quiet. Too quiet. He didn't move for a long time. Didn't approach the door again. Eventually, he stepped back. Sat down slowly on the edge of his bed. Phone still in his hand. Screen still lit. Conversation still open. But no new messages came. Not that night. The next day, everything felt wrong. Not just because of what happened, but because of how it sat in his mind. Like something unfinished. Like something that had already happened, just not here. Ethan went to school anyway. Routine. Normal. At least that's what he told himself. But the moment he stepped onto campus, he felt it again. That same awareness. Stronger now. Not distant. Not passive. Focused. He scanned the area. Quickly. Students moving. Conversations. Everything looked normal. Until he saw him, Adrian, standing near the far end of the walkway. Still. Watching. But something was different. Subtle. Hard to define. Ethan narrowed his eyes slightly. Then he realized Adrian wasn't just watching him. He was watching the door behind him, the same direction Ethan had come from. Like he knew. Ethan's chest tightened. He turned away immediately. Walked faster. He didn't want to engage. Didn't want another conversation. But Adrian spoke anyway. From behind him. You hesitated. Ethan stopped. Slowly. Didn't turn around. What? Footsteps. Calm. Measured. Closing the distance. You almost opened it, Adrian continued. Ethan turned now. Quick. Sharp. I didn't. Adrian tilted his head slightly. You did, he said. No. A pause. Then Adrian stepped closer. Just enough. And for the first time, there was something in his expression. Not emotion. Recognition. You're remembering the wrong version, he said quietly. Ethan stared at him. Because that sentence felt worse than anything else so far. Not confusing. Not strange. Just wrong. I don't know what you're talking about, Ethan said. Adrian held his gaze. Unblinking. You will, he replied. Then, he stepped back. Turned. and walked away. No rush, no hesitation, like the conversation had already ended before it began. Ethan stood there for a moment, trying to process it, but something else pulled his attention. A notification. He looked down. New message. Different account. Again. He opened it. No text. Just an image. Ethan's breath slowed. Because this one, he recognized immediately. It was his house, taken from outside, closer than the street, right near the front, and at the bottom, a timestamp, 10 minutes ahead. Ethan's grip tightened, because this time, he knew exactly what that meant, and this time, he couldn't ignore it. Ethan didn't wait. The moment he saw the image, he moved, out of the building, crossed the walkway, straight toward the exit. His pace wasn't a run, but it wasn't normal either. Controlled urgency, because if the timestamp was right, then whatever was about to happen hadn't happened yet, and that meant he still had time. The walk home felt shorter than usual, or maybe he just wasn't thinking about distance. Every step, his mind was replaying the image, angle, lighting, position, trying to predict it, trying to understand it. By the time he reached his street, he slowed down, not by choice, by instinct, because something felt off. Too quiet, even for that time of day. No cars, no movement, just stillness. Ethan stopped a few steps before his house. His eyes scanned the area. Left, right, nothing. Then, he heard it, distant at first. An engine, low, but getting louder, fast. Ethan turned toward the sound, and that's when he saw it. A car, at the far end of the street, moving too fast, too direct. His chest tightened, because it wasn't slowing down, not even slightly. It was coming straight toward him. Ethan stepped back. Instinctively, the car got closer, faster, and then it adjusted, not away from him, toward the house. Ethan's house, the exact angle from the image. Everything lined up perfectly. The speed, the direction, the timing. For a split second, everything slowed. The sound stretched. The motion dragged. And in that moment, Ethan saw the driver, just for a second, but it was enough, because it looked like Adrian. Not exactly. Older, more worn, but the same eyes, focused, unblinking, looking directly at him. Then, the car swerved, violent, sharp, tires screeching as it missed the front of the house by inches, cutting across the curb, and speeding past. Gone. Just like that. Silence snapped back in. Ethan stood there, frozen, heart racing, but his mind was somewhere else, because that wasn't the part that stayed with him. It was the look. That brief moment, when their eyes met, there was no panic, no loss of control. The driver hadn't looked surprised. He'd looked certain, like the outcome was already decided. Ethan's phone buzzed. He looked down slowly. Same thread, same account, one message. That was the closest you've been. Ethan's grip tightened, because that sentence wasn't about distance. It was about something else, something he hadn't done yet. The police came later. After the call, after the explanation, they checked the area, looked for damage, asked questions. Routine, but nothing came from it. No plate, no clear description, just another incident. Filed, forgotten. The next day, Ethan went back to school, not because he wanted to, but because staying home felt worse. He needed answers, and there was only one place to start. Adrian. Ethan found him in the same classroom, same seat, same stillness. Like always, Ethan walked straight up to him, didn't hesitate. That was you. Adrian looked up. Calm. Neutral. No, he said. Ethan shook his head, frustration breaking through. I saw you. A pause. Then, Adrian stood. Slowly, measured, and stepped closer. Which one? He asked. Ethan frowned. What? Adrian held his gaze, unblinking. The one who drove, he said. A beat. Or the one you didn't meet. Ethan's expression shifted, because now, it wasn't just confusing, it was connecting, and he didn't like where it was going. What are you talking about? Ethan asked. Adrian didn't answer immediately. He just watched him. Then, quietly, he said, You're still avoiding the point where this stops repeating. Ethan felt it again. That pressure. That sense of something looping, just out of reach. Glass Hall, Adrian added. Ethan's jaw tightened. No. A pause. Then Adrian nodded, like he expected that answer. Then it continues, he said. And just like before, he stepped back, turned, and walked away, leaving Ethan standing there, with one thought settling in deeper than anything else so far. This wasn't random. This wasn't harassment. This wasn't even just observation. It was correction. And Ethan was getting it wrong. And if you're still here right now, you're already seeing the pattern. Most people don't catch it this early. Make sure you're subscribed, because it only gets more connected from here. Ethan didn't go to the glass hall. Not that day. Not the next. He avoided that part of campus entirely. Changed routes again. Stayed around people. Anything to create distance. And for a while, it worked. No messages. No Adrian. No images. The silence should have felt like relief. It didn't. Because now, Ethan understood something he hadn't before. Silence didn't mean it was over. It meant it was waiting. Weeks passed. Routine settled back in. Classes. Conversations. Normal life. Or at least, something that looked like it. Then, started again. Not the same way. This time, it sat down next to him. The classroom was already half full when Ethan walked in. He didn't notice anything unusual at first. Just another day. Another lecture. He took his usual seat. Set his bag down. Looked forward. Then, someone pulled the chair beside him. Slow. Deliberate. Ethan glanced sideways. A guy he hadn't seen before. Early 20s. Calm expression. Neutral posture. But something about him felt familiar. Not recognizable. Just aligned. Is this seat taken? The guy asked. Ethan shook his head slightly. No. The guy nodded once. Sat down. Silence settled between them. Then, without looking over, he spoke again. You changed your routine. Ethan's body went still. Slowly, he turned his head. The guy was still facing forward. Relaxed. Unbothered. What? Ethan asked. A slight pause. Then, the guy turned. Met his eyes. You don't pass the east corridor anymore, he said. Ethan's chest tightened. Who are you? A small smile. Marcel. The name didn't mean anything, but the tone did. It wasn't curious. It wasn't friendly. It was certain. The lecture started, but Ethan barely registered it, because Marcel didn't stop. Not talking, but observing. Every time Ethan shifted, Marcel's posture adjusted slightly after. Every time Ethan reached for something, Marcel's hand moved a second later. Subtle, but precise. Like a delay. At first, Ethan told himself it was coincidence. People mirror each other all the time. It's normal. But this wasn't normal. Because the timing wasn't natural. It wasn't simultaneous. It was sequential. Like Marcel was copying him. One step behind. Ethan tested it. Shifted in his seat. Paused. A second later, Marcel adjusted the same way. Ethan tapped his fingers lightly on the desk. Stopped. A beat later, Marcel did the same. Same rhythm. Same pattern. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He leaned back, folded his arms, waited, and again. A moment later, Marcel mirrored it. Perfectly. Ethan turned to him. Direct. Stop doing that. Marcel blinked once. Doing what? You're copying me. A pause. Then, Marcel smiled slightly. No, he said. Another pause. Then, quietly, you're just easier to follow than you think. That sentence sat wrong. Not because of what it meant, but because of how easily he said it. Like it wasn't new information. The rest of the class dragged. Ethan didn't move much after that. Didn't give Marcel anything else to mirror. But he could still feel it. That same presence. Closer now. Not watching from a distance. Not messaging from nowhere. Right beside him. Learning. When the class ended, Ethan stood immediately. Grabbed his bag. He didn't wait. Didn't look back. But Marcel followed. Not close enough to confront. Just close enough to remain there. Consistent. Halfway down the hallway, Marcel spoke again. You're doing it again. Ethan stopped. Turned. Doing what? Marcel stepped closer. Calm. Measured. Avoiding the part where this connects, he said. Ethan stared at him. Because now, that phrase wasn't unfamiliar anymore. It was the same pattern. Different person. Same message. You know Adrian? Ethan asked. Marcel didn't react immediately. Then, he tilted his head slightly. Not the way you think, he said. A pause. Then, something quieter. He didn't get far enough. Ethan's chest tightened. Far enough for what? Marcel held his gaze. Unblinking. To stay, he said. And just like that, the feeling came back. Stronger than before. Not confusion. Recognition. Like this wasn't a new situation. Just a different version of the same one. The feeling didn't leave after that conversation. If anything, settled in deeper. Because now Ethan wasn't just dealing with one person. There was a pattern. Adrian. Marcel. Different faces. Same behavior. Same message. And worse, they both seemed to know something he didn't. Over the next few days, Marcel didn't stop. He didn't escalate immediately. Didn't get aggressive. He just stayed close. Too close. In class. In the hallway. Outside. Always within range. Always watching. And always slightly behind. The mirroring got worse. It wasn't just posture anymore. It was speech. Ethan would start a sentence, and Marcel would finish it. Not interrupting. Not overlapping. Just continuing. Like he already knew what was coming. It happened the first time during lunch. Ethan sat across from one of his friends, trying to ignore Marcel completely. I think I'm just gonna head out early today. Because you don't feel like staying, Marcel said calmly. Ethan stopped. His friend looked between them, confused. Did you guys plan that? His friend asked. Ethan didn't answer, because he hadn't. He stood up immediately, grabbed his things. Marcel didn't follow right away this time. He waited, then stood, and matched Ethan's pace again. Always one step behind. That night, it escalated. Ethan was in his room, door closed, lights off, trying to create distance from everything. His phone buzzed. He didn't want to check it, but he did. Unknown account. Again. One message. You're still doing it. Ethan exhaled slowly. Doing what? The reply came instantly. Delaying. His jaw tightened. I'm not going anywhere. Pause. Then, you don't have to. Another message followed. Look outside. Ethan didn't move. didn't respond, because he already knew what he would see. Still, he stood up, slowly, walked toward the window, every step, controlled, measured. He reached the curtain, paused, then pulled it back, just slightly, and there he was, Marcel, standing across the street, still, watching, not moving, not signaling, just there. Ethan's breathing slowed, because something about this was worse than before. With Adrian, felt like distance. With Marcel, there was none. His phone buzzed again, closer this time. Ethan's grip tightened, because Marcel hadn't moved, not even slightly, and yet, the message implied something else. Ethan blinked, just once, then focused again. Marcel was still there. Same spot, same posture. Ethan let the curtain fall, stepped back. This wasn't normal. This wasn't physical. Buzz. Another message. Check again. Ethan shook his head slightly. No. He said it under his breath, but the silence pushed back. Heavy. Waiting. He stepped forward again. Before he could stop himself, pulled the curtain back, faster this time, and Marcel was closer. Not by much, but enough. Enough that Ethan knew. He hadn't walked there. He hadn't seen him move, but the distance had changed. Ethan dropped the curtain, stepped back immediately, heart racing now, because that wasn't possible. Not without him noticing. His phone buzzed again. Now you're paying attention. Ethan didn't respond, didn't move, because something had shifted. Again, this wasn't just observation anymore. It wasn't mirroring. It wasn't prediction. It was convergence, and it was getting closer. Ethan didn't check the window again. He stayed where he was, back against the wall, phone still in his hand, because now he understood something clearly. Looking didn't give him control. It just confirmed how close it already was. The next day, he didn't go to class, didn't leave the house. He told himself it was to think, to reset, but that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was simpler. He didn't want to see Marcel again. That worked. For a while. No messages, no presence, just quiet. But the quiet felt different now. Not empty, occupied, like something was still there, just out of view. By the second day, Ethan couldn't stay inside anymore. The silence was worse than the encounters, because at least when something was happening, he could track it. This, he couldn't. So he left, carefully, step by step. The street looked normal. Cars passing, people moving. No sign of Marcel. Ethan exhaled slowly. Maybe it had stopped. Maybe avoiding it had worked. He started walking. No set direction. Just moving. Trying to clear his head. He made it halfway down the block before he felt it again. That same awareness. Closer than before. Not behind him. Beside him. Ethan slowed. Then stopped. And turned. Marcel was there. Right next to him. No footsteps. No approach. Just there. Like he had always been there. Ethan stepped back immediately. How did you? Marcel didn't answer. He just looked at him. Calm. Unbothered. You're getting closer, Marcel said. Ethan shook his head. No, you are. A pause. Then, Marcel smiled slightly. No, he said. Another step forward. You're catching up. Ethan's chest tightened, because that felt worse than anything else so far. Not being followed, not being watched, but being behind. What do you want? Ethan asked. Marcel held his gaze. Resolution, he said. Of what? A beat. Then, quietly, you. Ethan stepped back again. This wasn't normal. This wasn't even explainable. Just stop, he said. Marcel didn't react, didn't argue, He just lifted his hand slightly, mirroring. Ethan froze, because he hadn't moved. And yet, Marcel had. A second later, Ethan's hand twitched, just slightly, and suddenly, the sequence made sense. It wasn't copying anymore. It was leading. Ethan's breathing sharpened. "You're not following me," he said slowly. Marcel tilted his head, almost approving. "Finally," he said. The realization hit all at once. Every movement, every sentence, every interaction. It wasn't reaction. It was instruction. And Ethan had been the one matching it. He stepped back again. More distance this time. "No," he said. "I'm not doing this." Marcel didn't move, didn't follow. He just stood there, watching. "You already are," he said. Ethan turned, walked away, faster this time. He didn't look back, didn't stop, because now he understood something worse. This wasn't something chasing him, it was something guiding him, and every step he took to avoid it was still part of the path. That night, Ethan didn't wait for the message. He sat on his bed, phone in hand, screen open, waiting, because he knew it would come. And it did. Unknown account. New message. "Now you understand." Ethan stared at it, then typed, "What are you?" The reply took longer this time. Not instant. Not immediate. Like something was deciding. Then, the message appeared. Not what. A pause. Then, another line. When? Ethan's expression shifted, because that answer connected everything. Adrian, Marcel, different forms, same behavior, not separate, sequential. His phone buzzed again. Final message. There's only one place this stops. Ethan didn't need to ask where. He already knew. The glass hall. This is the part most people miss. Pay attention here, because everything from the beginning starts to make sense now. Ethan didn't sleep, not that night. He stayed awake, watching the screen, waiting for something else. Nothing came. No follow-up, no correction, just that final message. There's only one place this stops, and he already knew where. The glass hall. Morning came slowly, not because of time, but because Ethan wasn't ready for it. Because once he moved, this wouldn't be avoidance anymore. It would be a decision. And every time before, he'd made the wrong one. By late afternoon, he couldn't delay it anymore. Not because he wanted answers, but because something deeper had settled in. If he didn't go, this would keep happening. Different forms, different versions, same outcome. So he went. The path to the glass hall wasn't complicated, just rarely used. The further he walked, the quieter it got. No students, no movement, just distance. The building came into view gradually. Low structure, wide glass panels, most of them cracked or darkened, unused, forgotten. Exactly how Adrian described it. Ethan slowed as he approached, not from fear, from recognition, because this place felt familiar, not visually, but mentally, like he had been here before, or something close to it. The door was slightly open, just enough, not forced, not broken, inviting. Ethan stopped a few steps away. His chest tightened slightly, because this was the point, the moment everything had been pushing toward. And for a second, he almost turned back. Instinct. But then, his phone buzzed. One last message. This time, don't leave. Ethan looked at the screen, then back at the door, and stepped forward. The inside was darker than expected. Not completely dark, but dim. Light filtering through broken glass. Just enough to see shapes. The space was larger than it looked from outside. Open. Empty. Or at least, it should have been. Ethan took another step inside, then another. The door creaked slightly behind him, not closing, just shifting. He looked around slowly. Nothing moved. Nothing reacted. Just silence. But the feeling was immediate, strong, like stepping into something that already existed before he arrived. Good. The voice came from somewhere ahead, familiar. Ethan's body tensed because he knew that voice. Not from one person, from all of them. Adrian stepped forward first. From the shadows. Same posture, same stillness. Then, from another side, Marcel, calm, watching. And behind them, further back, another figure, harder to see, less defined, but present. Ethan didn't move, didn't speak, because now, there was no confusion left, just confirmation. You made it further this time, Adrian said. Ethan's jaw tightened. What is this? He asked. Marcel answered. Correction. A pause. Then, the third figure stepped closer, not fully visible, but enough. And when it spoke, its voice wasn't separate. It was both of theirs, layered. You keep stopping before the point where this stabilizes. Ethan's chest tightened. Stabilizes what? He asked. Silence. Then, Adrian spoke again. You. Ethan shook his head. No, that doesn't make sense. Marcel tilted his head slightly. It will, he said. A step closer. You've already seen what happens when you don't. Ethan's mind flashed. The car, the messages, the door, all of it. That wasn't random, Marcel continued. That was drift. Ethan frowned. Drift. Adrian nodded slightly. You moving away from the fixed point. And this, Marcel gestured slightly around them, is where it resets. Ethan's breathing slowed, because now, it was starting to form. Not fully, but enough. You're not different people, he said slowly. Silence. Then, the third figure stepped closer again. Clearer now. Still not fully visible, but enough to see the outline. Your iterations, Ethan continued. A pause. Then, Adrian smiled slightly. Better, he said. Ethan looked between them. Iterations of what? No one answered immediately. Then, all three of them spoke. At the same time. You. Ethan didn't react immediately. Not because he didn't understand, but because he did. And understanding it made everything worse. You're saying. He started, then stopped, because there wasn't a version of that sentence. That sounded normal. Adrian stepped forward slightly. Not exactly you, he said. Marcel continued. Not yet. The third figure shifted again. Closer now. Clearer. And for the first time, Ethan saw it properly. The outline, the posture, the shape. It matched him. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough that it didn't feel like coincidence. You keep reaching this point, the layered voice said. And every time, you stop, Adrian finished. Ethan shook his head slowly. No, I avoided it. Marcel tilted his head. That's the same thing. Silence settled in the room. Heavy. Because now, there was only one question left. What happens if I don't? Ethan asked. A pause. Then, Adrian answered. You already saw it. Ethan's mind flashed again. The car, the messages, the door, the repetition, the pressure, the constant correction. That keeps happening, Marcel said. Over and over. Different forms, Adrian added. Same outcome, the third voice finished. Ethan's chest tightened, because there was no hesitation in their answers. No uncertainty, just certainty. And if I stay? He asked. This time, they didn't answer immediately, not because they didn't know, but because it mattered. The third figure stepped forward again, now close enough to see the details. Tired eyes, worn expression, familiar. "You don't loop," it said. A pause. "You anchor." Ethan frowned slightly. "Anchor what?" Silence. Then, all three again. "Everything." The word settled. Heavy. Final. Because now, there wasn't another option. There wasn't a third path. Just two outcomes. Repeat or stay. Ethan looked around the glass hall. The broken panels. The dim light. The stillness. And then, back at them. At himself. Every version. Every iteration. Watching. Waiting. "You've been trying to fix this," he said quietly. Adrian nodded once. "For longer than you think," Marcel added. "Long enough to stop counting." Ethan exhaled slowly, because deep down, he already knew what the answer was. He just hadn't accepted it yet. "If I leave," he said, "you keep coming back." No one corrected him. That was the answer. "And if I stay," the third figure met his eyes. "We stop." Silence. One final moment. One final decision. Ethan nodded. Small, but certain. "Then I stay." The reaction wasn't dramatic. No sudden change. No visible shift. Just stillness. And then, something subtle. Pressure. Disappeared. Adrian stepped back. Marcel did the same. The third figure held his gaze for a moment longer, then nodded, almost relieved. And then, they were gone. Not fading, not walking away, just absent. Ethan stood alone in the glass hall, the space unchanged. But something felt different, stable, still, complete. Time passed, not measured, not tracked, just settled. And then, everything reset. A new day, same campus, same classrooms, same routine. Students moving, conversations blending. Normal. In one of the classrooms, a new student sat near the back. Still, quiet, watching. No introduction, no announcement, just present. A student nearby glanced at him, frowned slightly. "Hey," he said. "Are you new?" The student looked up, calm, neutral, then answered, "Yeah." A pause. Then, just slightly, he added, "My name's Adrian." Across the room, someone shifted in their seat, unaware, unwatching, unprepared. And from the back of the room, Adrian watched. Not curious, not confused, certain, waiting, because the scariest part was never being followed. It was realizing you were always part of the pattern. And now, he was the one watching. If you made it all the way through, you were paying attention. And if you want more stories like this, you already know what to do.